No, you know what I think? I think that, and this is, I think I like the way you describe the situation with Saif and his sons, because that's exactly where the corruption starts. There is a whole section in this book where I talk about the Libya, being turned into a farm. That basically everybody's stealing public money for their own private interests. Now, if you as a leader you are not educating your own sons according to the ideals that you are professing and bringing forward, but actually it's the opposite that's taking place. That is already a sort of a, how do you say, a microcosm of the way you might be running the country. And I think what took place there is the fact that I don't think he was naive. I think that at certain point he literally believed that he had this figure, and there is a little bit of an attitude in that, in the sense that he became the so-called brother leader of the revolution, where he stepped back and he was just providing directives, but he wasn't really taking care of how the country was being run. And at the same time, he was relying on people who were not doing a good job. So in a way, there is a sort of the mismanagement of the country is of the administration, of the way corruption increased. And we are talking about a period that goes from the 90s, particularly when the country, is sort of defeated because the UN multilateral sanctions start, Libya is isolated, opposition groups are being funded by the West, there is a sort of a coup attempt by the Islamists in the 90s, which will come to power in 2011. So there are many reasons, obviously, and in this picture, no matter how much you want to focus on Gaddafi, there is constantly interference, there is constantly a geopolitical pressure, a threat of war over Libya, and all this. So yes, but if you start looking at his relationship with his own family and at times with the country, yes, you can see, already in there a little bit of a microcosm of what could possibly be the bigger picture then. So indeed, in this, and going back to the resource course that you asked before, sorry, yes, I mean, the resource course for whom? Obviously, for countries of the global south who are trying to regain a certain right to development. Is oil a curse? Obviously, it's not. It's a curse for the global south when they're trying to use it to bring forward their own regional or national projects. Indeed, particularly when, you encounter the US and you are challenging their own interest, and particularly when you start using oil to support liberation movements across Africa and the Middle East. If you start doing that, oil, even water, can become a curse.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, I think I don't want to keep talking about Gaddafi. I don't have this opportunity often. So I do think though that like the question of what happens after, like the 2011, like maybe we should get into that, because although we should do a deeper dive into, I want to talk about I want to talk about nationalization in 73, but let's not get into that. Let's wait. Let's go further, because we're already half an hour in, or 40 minutes in, and we should keep going, because really this book is a study of what happens after. So 2011, can you give us a kind of narrative rundown? You kind of do in the book. You do an excellent job in the book, but can you give us, for people who might be not aware of the Libyan theater of the so-called Arab Spring, a term I do not traffic in at all. But if we can just be cliched normies for a second, but like, what happened in Libya and how did it unfold?
All right, so I think it was the 17th of February where what would then became known as the 17th of February Revolution starts. So a group of people led by a group of people goes into the streets on the 17th of February of Benghazi to protest against the arrest of the lawyer representing the families of the victims, of the disappeared victims the killing of the Abu Salim prison, which had taken place in 1996, where figures are contested, but the story goes that prisoners were killed in the prison. The government never provided an idea on the fate of the prisoners, so the population itself started to to push the government to provide information. So this is where the protest starts. Now the protest turned into a wider demand for justice and transparency, because as you know, in that moment, by the 17th of February, you had already Tunisia set on fire with the protest, as well as Egypt. So it becomes an opportunity to voice more than that. So transparency, societal discontent for for political freedom and economic conditions and all that. The thing is that this so-called civil protest immediately turned into clashes, because down one you have protesters that they set on fire police barracks, they try to get weapons from military depots. At the same time, obviously, the government is going to react and is going to arrest some of them, if not shoot some of them. Then there is, and that's okay, in the sense that this is a typical moment of societal discontent. It's brewing, it's there, it makes sense in a way, because it's happening in the neighboring countries. What doesn't really make sense is that by the 17th of February, 10 days, the Libyan National Transnational Council is formed, which is basically a group of government affiliates who has defected from the government and decides to take up the administrative, executive, and political roles of what by now they were called rebels. Okay, we are 10 days into that. On March 13th, which is not even a month since the February 17th, the UN Security Council passes Resolution 1973, calling for an immediate ceasefire and authorizing the use of all necessary measures to protect civilian areas, because Gaddafi was about to commit a genocide, a complete, destruction of Benghazi. By 2 weeks into it, you have a no-fly zone. They start providing weapons to the rebels, despite they said no foot on the grounds. They are bombing Libya, and then history will prove us that the Qataris were in, the British were in, and they were arming the rebels and all that. By October, Gaddafi is dead, is captured after his car convoys is bombed by NATO, and is brutally executed in the street close to a sewage, and you have the collapse of the Libyan Arab Jamahiriya.